Hi, my name is Mr. Chu and I welcome you to my study room. We are dedicating today's study to solving the essay questions from the 2022 WASSCE Core or General Mathematics paper, and we'll be taking our time to go through all 13 questions in a step-by-step manner. We start right with the very first question, which says that the third and the eighth terms of a geometric progression GP are 4 and 1 over 256 respectively. Find the A, common ratio, B, first term, and C, the sum of the first and the second terms. As we always do from word problems, the first thing we need to do to help us solve this question will be to first identify the key facts from this question that can make it a bit easier for us. And the facts are: the third term is 4 and the eighth term is 1 over 256. And before we continue further, this question is a sequences and series question, more specifically a geometric progression or an exponential sequence. And the first thing or the most important thing for us will be to state the general term of a GP, and I hope you remember that. Yes, the general term of a GP is UN equals AR exponent n minus 1, where A is the first term, R is the common ratio, and N is the number of terms. Right. So getting specifically to this question, the third term is going to be U3, which will be equal to AR exponent 2, because we don't know the A, we don't know the R, but our N is 3 and 3 minus 1 is 2. That's why we have AR squared. And the question said this is equal to 4. Let's make this equation 1 because we cannot simplify it and we'll need to come back to it again. And the second part says the eighth term. So that will be U8 equals AR exponent 7. Again, because N in this case is 8 minus 1, which will give us 7, and that should give us 1 over 256. Right. Now, mostly with GP, we will need to divide terms. If it were to be an AP or an arithmetic progression, we would have subtracted terms, but here we will need to divide terms, and it is mostly easier to divide the bigger term by the smaller terms. So we'll do equation 2 divided by equation 1, and that is AR exponent 7 divided by AR squared, which is equal to 1 over 256 divided by 4 over 1, because every whole number is over 1. And because the fractions are dividing, I decided to bring the over 1 just to make it a bit easier for us. Solving this further, the a's will cancel out, and r exponent 7 divided by r squared will be the same as 7 minus 2, which is r exponent 5, equals to 1 over 256 times 1 over 4. Remember, we changed the division to multiplication. For that matter, we have to reciprocate the 4 over 1 to get 1 over 4. So our r exponent 5 is going to give us 1 over 256 times 1 over 4 from our calculator will give us 1 over 1024. And remember, we are solving for the value of r and not r exponent 5. So how do we do that? Yeah, it will be important for us to take the fifth root, and the root we take is always done by looking at the exponent of the number. So it's 5, that's why we are taking the fifth root, and we take the fifth root of both sides, and the exponent 5 will cancel out the fifth root. We have r, and the fifth root of 1 over 1024 from our calculator is going to give us 1 over 4, and that is the common ratio of the question, which is the A part. Now let's go to the B part. Now that we know the common ratio, we are just going to substitute that into one of the equations. We can substitute it into equation 1 or equation 2, but since the equation 1 is smaller, I would like to substitute my r into that in order to get my A. So that brings our B. We substitute r equal to 1 over 4 into equation 1. And remember, our equation 1 is ar squared equal to 4. So substituting r equal to 1 over 4, we'll have a multiplying 1 over 4 all squared equals 4. And 1 over 4 squared is 1 over 16. So working it together, we'll have a over 16 equals to 4. Multiplying both sides by 16, our a will be equal to 64. Therefore, the first term of the sequence is 64. So that answers the B part of the question. And again, even if we substitute it into the equation 2, we are still going to have 64. I just chose that because it is easier and smaller. Now let's go to the third part, which is a C, which is for us to find the sum of the first and the second terms of the sequence. The second term, you know that you have the general formula U2 equals AR, because the n is 2 and 2 minus 1 is 1, so AR. And our a is 64, our r is 1 over 4. So we just substitute both of them, and that will be 64 times 1 over 4, and 64 times 1 over 4 is 16. So that is our second term. Now that we know the first and the second term, we can conclude that the sum of the first and the second term is 64 plus 16, which will give us 80. And that is the solution to the C. The sum of the first and second term is 80. And that's the end of the first question. Let's now go to the second question. And the second question reads, in a school election for the position of SRC president, one candidate obtained 87.5% of the votes cast. The other candidate obtained a total of 275 votes. A. How many votes did the winner obtain? B. If the voter turnout was 55%, find the total number of eligible voters in the school. As usual, it will be very important for us to get the key facts from this question to make the solution very easy for us. And these facts are: one of the candidates obtained 87.5% of the total votes cast, and the other candidate obtained a total of 275 votes. These are very important information that will help us solve our question. And to solve it further, we can confidently say that if one candidate obtained 87.5% of the total vote cast, then it means that we have to subtract the 87.5% from 100, because a total percentage is always 100%. 100 minus 87.5 is 12.5%. And since they said the other candidate obtained 275 votes, it means that 12.5% of the total vote cast is 275 votes. Let me write that quickly. Right. Then now we go to the question A now, which is how many votes did the winner obtain? Yes. To find the total vote obtained by the winner, which is 87.5% of the total vote cast, the easier way I think we can do this is to use proportion. And there are two things we can do to find how many votes represent the 87.5. One of the ways we can do that is to equate both of them. So if 12.5% of the vote cast is 275 votes, then 87.5% of the vote we don't know yet, so let's replace that with X. But then a very popular way of solving this would be to use what we call if more less divide, or if less more divide. And that is how we go by this, that if 12.5% of the vote is 275, then will 87.5% of the vote be more than the 275 votes, or it will be less? And I hope you are going to tell me to be more. So we say that if more less divide, then it means that the smaller one of the two will divide, and that will be 87.5% divided by 12.5 times the one standing alone, 275. All right, so that is what we have here, and working that on our calculator is going to give us 1925 votes as 87.5% of the total vote cast, which is the same as the number of votes obtained by the winning candidate. Right, then there's alternative way of solving this. Alternatively, we will say that if 12.5% of the vote is 275, then what will the 100%, which is the total vote cast, what will it be? That means that with this one, we are not finding the 87.5%, but rather you are finding the total vote cast. So we'll ask the question again. If 12.5% of the vote is 275, then would the 100% of the vote be more than 275 or less? I'm sure you tell me to be more. So if more, right, let's divide. So within these two, we are going to divide by the smaller one. So that will be 100 divided by 12.5 times the lower, which is 275. And using our calculator, that is going to give us 2,200 votes. But remember, the 2,200 votes is the total vote cast. So for us to find the votes obtained by the winning candidate, we have to subtract the other candidate vote, which is 275, from the 2,200. So the total number of votes obtained by the winning candidate is total number of votes cast, which is 2,200 minus 275, and that will give us 1,925 votes, which is the same as what we got from here when we found the 87.5% of the vote directly. Right, so that is how to find this. Whether you use you're still using proportion, but whether you find the 87.5 directly or you find 100% and then you subtract the 12.5% of the vote from. So let's take the second part of the question. If the voter turnout was 55%, find the total number of eligible voters in the school. Right, so now we know the total voter turnout as 2,200 voters, and they said that is 55% of the total vote cast. From what we've solved already, the total voter turnout is 2,200 according to our calculations, and the question says that this is 55% of the vote cast. If 55% of the total number of eligible voters is 2,200, then what would the 100% of the total number of eligible voters be? Let's let that be X. So that's what we have there. And again, comparing, if 55% of the total voter turnout is 2,200, will 100% be more than 2,200 or it will be less? I'm sure you are saying it will be more. So if more, let's divide. So that means you are going to have 100 divided by 55, because 55 is less than 100, and times 2,200. And using our calculator to work it out, we are going to have 4,000 total number of eligible voters. So it means that the total number of voters who registered to vote in the school or who qualified to vote in the school are 4,000. The total number of eligible voters in the school is 4,000. Let's go to the third question. And that says that a mason hired a laborer to fill a cubic rubber tank of length 1.2 meters with water. The laborer used a container of volume 54 liters. If the mason agreed to pay 1.75 Ghana cedis for a container of water fetched, calculate A, in liters, the volume of the tank, B, the number of containers of water that can fill the tank, and C, the amount of money paid to the laborer to fill the tank with water. Good. If you be following my channel, then you know the first thing we do anytime we get a word problem, that will be for us to identify the key facts from the question. So right from this question, the key facts are: the tank is a cubic tank. That is very important. You have to know the shape of the tank. A cubic rubber tank. And then again, another fact to be what? Right, I'm sure you are saying the length is 1.2 meters. Then what again can we get from the question? I'm sure you are thinking about the volume. Yes, you are right. So the question said the volume is 54 liters. The volume of the tank is 54 liters. So that's another important information. And then one information we cannot overlook is how much the mason agreed to pay for a container of water, and that is 1.75 Ghana cedis. So these are the key facts from the question. 1.75 Ghana cedis for a container of water. Now let's get to the first part of the question now. Calculate in liters the volume of the tank. So now that we got the key fact from there, let's now get back to them, and we'll deal with the very first one, the fact that the tank is a cubic tank. So to find the volume of a cubic tank, we must use the volume of a cube. And I hope you remember what the volume of a cube is. Yes, you are right. That is V equals L cube. Because with a cube, all sides or faces have the same length measure. So the length is equal to the width and is equal to the height. So length times width times height now becomes length times length times length, because they are all equal, and that gives us a cube. And from the question, the length of our tank volume formula, you are going to have 1.2 times 1.2 times 1.2. If you like, you can also write it as 1.2 cube instead of repeating it. I just wanted to state that to show what it means. And using our calculator, that should give us 1.728 cubic meters. Yeah, don't forget the unit. The unit is very important, as the figures. This volume is in cubic meters, but the question said we should write it in liters. So it will be very important for us to get a conversion rate, like how many cubic meters make a liter. And 1 liter is equal to 1000 cubic meters. Then 1.728 cubic meters into liters is going to give us 1.728 times 1000, and that will give us 1728 liters. And that is the volume of our tank in liters, and that answers the first part of the question, which is the A part. Let's go to the B part, and that says that we should calculate the number of containers of water that can fill the tank. And that sends us to our next important information, and that is the volume of the container. And the question stated that as 54 liters. So if we know the total volume of our tank as 1728 liters, then the number of containers that we'll get from our tank will be to divide the volume of our tank by the volume of our container, and that is 1728 liters divided by 54, and that will give us 32. That means our tank will take 32 containers of water, 32 containers of volume, 54 liters. Right, and that answers the second part of our question. Let's go to the last part, which is the C part. The amount of money paid to the laborer to fill the tank with water. Right. So again, we come back to the question, which is the fourth key fact we took from there, that the mason agreed to pay the laborer 1.75 liters for a container of water. So if he's paying 1.75 liters for a container of water, then 32 containers will simply give us 1.75 times 32, and that will give us 56 Ghana cedis. So that means the amount of money paid to the laborer is 56 Ghana cedis. And that ends the third question. Let's go to the fourth question. So the fourth question has a diagram, and the question under it is, in the diagram, the line segment PQ is parallel to the line segment RS. Given that x to y equals 2 to 7, find the value of m. Like I said earlier, these two lines PQ and RQ, as stated clearly in the question, are parallel lines. So as stated in the question, if PQ and RS are parallel lines, then it means that this line is a transversal. Right. And I have a video on angles formed between parallel lines and transversal, and I'll be sharing the link to some of them at the top here, and they will be in the description as well. So again, now that we know that these two lines are parallel and these are transversal, it means that the x and 7m minus 16 degrees are corresponding angles. These and these are corresponding angles, and the corresponding angles are congruent or equal. So that means x will be equal to 7m minus 16 degrees. Yes, we can make that equation 1 because we will come back to it. Also, the x and the y are same side interior angles or co-interior angles, right? And same side interior angles are supplementary according to the theorem. So if co-interior angles are supplementary, it means that x plus y will be equal to 180 degrees, right? Making y the subject, we are going to have 180 degrees minus x. But already from equation 1, we know the value of x to be 7m minus 16. That means our y now becomes 180 minus our x is 7m minus 16. And simplifying further, we'll have 180 minus 7m plus 16. Remember, we have negative 1 outside here, that will open the parentheses, and that gives us 180 plus 16 are like 10, so that will give us 196 minus 7m. And let's make that equation 2, since both of them have a common term, which is the m. So the equation 1 is the expression for x, and the equation 2 is the expression for y. Now let's get back to the original question. The original question says that given that x to y equals 2 to 7, it's a very important information for us to use. Ratio is the same as division, so x to y can also be written as x over y, and that will be equal to 2 over 7. And making x the subject from this, we are going to have x equal to 2 over 7y, which is simply obtained by multiplying both sides by y. Substituting equations 1 and 2, we are going to have 7m minus 16, which is the expression for x, being equal to 2 over 7, multiplying the y, which is 196 minus 7m. Simplifying further, you are going to have 7m minus 16 equals Using 2 over 7 to multiply 196 will give us 56, minus 2 over 7 multiplying 7m will give us 2m. Then we can group like terms. Grouping like terms, you are going to have 7m plus 2m being equal to 56 plus 16. 7m plus 2m will give us 9m, and 56 plus 16 will give us 72. And dividing through both sides by 9, our m is going to be 8. And that is the answer to the question. I should quickly state that instead of using 2 over 7 to open the parentheses, some would like to multiply both sides by 7. So the 7 will come and multiply the left hand side. The only difference between the two will be that you get bigger values, which you have to reduce later with your calculator, and it will give you the most important thing is that it will give you the final answer as 8. To verify your answer, you can plug the value of m into equation 1 and equation 2 and check from the diagram here whether it makes sense. And when you do, it will give you the same thing. Let's get to the next question, which is question 5. The A part of question 5 reads that given that sine y equals 5 over 13, where 0 degrees less or equal to y less or equal to 90 degrees, evaluate 3 cos y minus 2 sine y all over 6 tan y. Then the B part says that a number is chosen at random from the set of integers 10 to 30 inclusive. Find the probability that the number is a multiple of 3 or 4. Let's come back right to the first one. And this first question is a trigonometry question, and the ratio of sine y as 5 over 30. The easiest thing for us would be for us to sketch our right triangle and put in the ratio to make sense. And sine y, do you remember SOHCAHTOA? Sine will be the so part of it, which is the sine of an angle will be equal to offset over hypotenuse. So now we are taking sine y, having our triangle and our y clearly shown in it. The offset is 5, which is the side directly opposite our angle y. So we put a 5 there, and the hypotenuse is 13. And whenever we have a right triangle, 2 sides given and a side missing, it will be easier for us to use the Pythagorean theorem. So by using the Pythagorean theorem, which says that for any right triangle, the sum of the squares of the 2 other sides will be equal to the square of the hypotenuse. So this one will have x squared being equal to 13 squared minus 5 squared, because the 13 is the hypotenuse. So 13 squared is 169 minus 25, which is 5 squared, and x squared is going to give us 144. We take square root of both sides to get rid of the square, and that gives our x to be 12. So from here we can now have our 3 ratios and just substitute them into the expression. So sine y has been given us already 5 over 13. We can now get our cos y, and cos is ka of the SOHCAHTOA, and that is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent of this triangle is 12 over the hypotenuse is 13, and tan is 5 over 12. So that is how we get these 3. We now just go back and substitute them into this expression. Let's rewrite our expression and plug in our values. So 3 cos y is 12 over 3 minus 2 sine y is 5 over 13 all over 6 tan y is 5 over 12. Then working it further, 3 times 12 over 13 will give us 36 over 13 minus 2 times 5 over 13 will give us 10 over 13 all over. This will give us 5 over 2 because the 6 will go into 12 two times. Right, working it further, the two of the numerator have the same denominators. So we're just going to do 36 minus 10, which will give us 26 over 13 divided by 5 over 12. And 26 over 13 is 2 times 2 over 5. Remember, the division has been changed to multiplication, and that is going to give us 4 over 5. You can also plug the values into your calculator directly and then just hit the enter to verify your answer. But remember, this is an essay question, so you'll be required to substitute the values and work it out to show your final answer. So you can only use the calculator to verify. Right, let's go to the B part of the question. A number is chosen at random from the set of integers 10 to 30 inclusive. Find the probability that the number is a multiple of 3 or 4. The easiest thing for us to do will be for us to list the members of each set so that it can make the whole solution very visible for us. And the first one says a set of integers between 10 and 30 inclusive. That means from 10 to 30. So if we decide to call our integer the set, and then the members will be 10, 11, 12 up to 30, right? And then we count the members. So the number of members or element in n is 21. Then we get back to the other part of the question, which says that find the probability that the number is a multiple of 3 or 4. So now let's get another set to represent the multiples of 3, and let's call that the set A. And the members of the set A will be 12. Remember, we are starting from 10. So from 10, the next multiple of 3 is 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. Right, and the number of elements in A will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is 7. And the next set will be the set of multiples of 4. Let's call that set B. And its members will be from 10. The multiples of 4 will be 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. And that is all. And the number of elements in B will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Right. If A and B are not mutually exclusive, then it will be very important for us to state A intersection B. And we check the common terms. There are 12 and 24. So as we have been able to represent all this information, it now makes the element from our question very visible. So solving our probability question becomes a bit easier for us now. Probability of A union B is probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A intersection B. That is if they are not mutually exclusive. So probability of A is the number of elements in A over the sample space, and the number of elements is in A is 7 and sample space is 21. So that will be 7 over 21 plus 5 over 21 minus 2 A intersection B, number of elements in A intersection, which is 2 over 21. All three have the same denominator, so we just work out the numerators. 7 plus 5 is 12 minus 2 is 10 over 21. And that's the probability of selecting a number that is either a multiple of 3 or 4. And that answers our second question. Now let's move on to the next question, which is question 6. Question 6 gives us a graph with the instruction that the graph shows the relation of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constant. A. State the scale used for each axis. B. Find the values of a, b, and c. And then C. Find the values of x when y equals 7. D. Write the coordinate of the minimum point. And then E. State the range of values of x for which y is less than 0. Right, let's get back to our question proper. And this question, like I stated earlier, gives us a graph that is stated in the general quadratic form. And the first part of the question is asking us to state the scale for each of the axes. So we are just to check the markings on the x-axis and that of the y-axis. And on the x-axis, you already know that each of the bigger boxes is 2 centimeters, and the marking is done from 0 we went to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, so the intervals is 1. Because of that, we'll state the scale as 2 centimeters to 1 unit on the x-axis. And when we come back to the y-axis, the same thing. The boxes are usually 2 centimeters, so we just check the marking. And the intervals from 0 we went to 2, from 2 we went to 4, 4 to 6, and to 8. So we say that the scale on the y-axis is 2 centimeters to 2 units on the y-axis. And the scale is mostly stated 2 centimeters because, like I said, the marking is mostly on the bigger boxes, which is 2 centimeters. So you use whether it should be 1 unit or 2 units is determined by the intervals between the numbers. Yeah, so that is how we get that. And that answers the first part of our question, which is we should state the scale. So the scale for this graph is 2 centimeters to 1 unit on the x-axis because the intervals is 1, and 2 centimeters to 2 units on the y-axis because the intervals is 2. Let's get to the second part of the question. Find the values of A, B, and C. So we go to the B part, which is find the values of A, B, and C. There are a number of ways by which we can do this, but one of them will be to use the root. And the root of solutions of these relations are the x-intercept of the graph, and that are 1 and 5. So the solution to this graph is x equal to 1 and x equal to 5, because that is where the graph cut or intersects the x-axis. And the first method I would like to use to solve this would be using the factors. So now what we're going to do is that we are going to turn this root into factors. And to turn this root into factors, we simply move the numbers to the left hand side to join the x. That transforms it from a root to a factor. After moving the 1 to the left, we're now going to have the factors as x minus 1, because the 1 coming to the left becomes minus and the 5 coming to the left becomes negative 5. So the factors now become x minus 1 and then x minus 5. So that is our y. Then, because of the way the relation is stated in the question, we will now have to expand this to get it in the form the question wanted. And we'll be using the distributive property where the x will multiply the x, multiply the negative 5, and the negative 1 will multiply the x and multiply the negative 5. So by using the distributive property, this one now becomes x squared because s times s is s squared, s times negative 5 is negative 5x, negative 1 times x will be negative x, negative 1 times negative 5 will be positive 5. Simplifying together, because negative 5 and negative s are like terms, you're going to have s squared minus 6x plus 5, and that is the answer to the B. The relation has now been expressed in the standard form. So to get back to the question is asking us to find the values of A, B, and C. So comparing our equation with the general or the standard form of the equation, which is y equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, our A is going to be 1, B will be negative 6, and then C will be 5. So that becomes the answer to our question. But then this use turning root into factors is the easier option to use when the roots or the solution of the quadratic equation are whole numbers, or when the x-intercept are whole numbers. But then I would like to use a second method when the x-intercept is not a whole number, or they are not whole numbers. Then that becomes a little bit difficult to find the factors to use if you are using a graph. So let's use an alternative method, which is expressing the equation or the relation in the vectors form, then we change into the standard or the general form. Expressing it in the vectors form, we are going to use the form y equals a multiplying x minus h all squared plus k, where a is the same as the a in the general form, h is the x coordinate of the vectors, and then k is the y coordinate of the vectors. Now we are going to state the coordinate of the vectors of our graph, and then we substitute that into this form. And by looking at this graph, the vectors occurs here, and the coordinates are 3, negative 4. So let's state that as the vectors of our graph. The vectors is 3, negative 4. Right. Now, like I said earlier, we'll be substituting this into our relation. Wherever we see h, we put 3, and wherever we see k, we put negative 4, and that gives us y equals a multiplying x minus 3, because we are replacing the h with 3, all squared minus 4. Remember, the k is negative, that's why we have minus 4. After doing that, we just go back to our equation and pick a point, 1 point, and substitute the coordinates in place of x and y. And now coming back to the graph, we'll pick the point 1, 0. I just pick 1, 0 because 1, 0 is clearly seen, but we can choose any other point and pick the coordinate. So substituting 1, 0 into our relation, wherever we see y, we're going to put 0, and wherever we see x, we put 1. So we get 0 equals a multiplying y minus 3 all squared minus 4. And working that further, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So we get a multiplying negative 2 squared minus 4. And simplifying further, we have negative 2 squared to be 4, multiplying a for a minus 4, and rearranging, 4a will be equal to 4, dividing through by 4 gives us 1 as our a. Right. So we go back to our relation and substitute our a. So we now have y equals, our a is 1, so we get x minus 3 all squared. Since the 1 is invisible, then minus 4. And that is the equation of our graph in the vertex form, where 3, -4 are the coordinate of the vertex. But then, because of the way it's stated, we need to expand it into the general form. And using binomial expansion, we are going to get x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 4. And simplifying further, we get y equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. And when you compare with what we got from the first one, you see that they are the same, right? So then you can get your A, B, and your C out. Like I said earlier, it depends on the nature of the question. If the x-intercept or the solution of the graph are very, very clear and obvious and are whole numbers, then using this, the first method works. But if they are not whole numbers, then it will be a bit difficult to use that, because you need to turn the root into factors. So you check whether the coordinate of the vertex are whole numbers, then you use the vertex form. I hope this second formula will be of help. Let's go to the third part. We have to find the values of x when y equals 7. So here someone will say, oh, why don't we just plug the y equals 7 into our equation and solve? But they say you should use the graph. So you can only use that to verify your answer, but you need to trace it from the graph so that you can get a full mark. So we are going to look for 7 on our y-axis, and then we draw a horizontal line. So we use a ruler to draw a horizontal line through 7 on the y-axis to cut through our graph. Then after that, we trace the intersections of our graph and our new line through y equals 7 to the x-axis, and record the x values as the answer for y equals to 7 from the graph. Right, we've not drawn our y equals to 7 yet, so this line is y equals 7 because it passes through 7 on the y-axis. So now that we've done that, and we have traced the intersection also to the x-axis, we'll now record these two values as our answer. And looking at the scale for our graph, the left side is approximately negative 0.3, and to the right hand side is 6.3. So let's go and write that as our answer for x when y equals 7. Now let's go to the D. Write down the coordinate of the minimum point of the graph. And as we discussed earlier, the minimum point of the graph occurs at the vertex of the graph here. And we found that earlier in the question. So the coordinate of the vertex of the graph will be the minimum point, and that is 3, -4. Now let's go to E. State the range of values of x for which y is less than 0. You're looking at the graph. This graph begins from y equals 12 and keep reducing as you go down. You see that the y keep reducing until you get to 1 here. Then y becomes less than 0. But as we continue to trace any point from the 1 here, the value of y is less than 0, is negative. That means it is less than 0. So when you trace any point from here, it will be less than 0 until you get to the turning point. Then after that, it keeps rising again, but still less than 0 until we get to the 5. So as we get to the 5 again, the value of y will be 0, and just after the 5, the value of y becomes positive now. You see that for any part of the graph between 1 and 5, the value of y will be less than 0. Yeah, so it means that for this part of the graph, y is less than 0. So we are going to look for the x values within this shaded region and record them as our answer. You agree with me that those are the values between 1 and 5. So that becomes our answer. 1 less than x less than 5 is the range of values of x for which y is less than 0. So let's write that as the answer to our question. 1 less than x less than 5, and that answers our question for the E. Let's get to question 7 quickly. And question 7 reads, the estimated cost of building a 2-bedroom house is 120,000 cedis. It is made up of labor, material, and consultancy fee in the ratio 5 to 12 to 3, respectively. At the start of the construction, the labor cost increased by 2y%, cost of materials increased by 2.5y%, while consultancy fee remained unchanged. If the new cost of labor is to fit the new cost of material, find the A, value of y, B, new cost of building the house. Right, as usual, this is quite a long question, so we would like to take our time to get all the facts from the question down so that we will just pick them one by one while we solve the question. And these are the facts. The first one will be the estimated cost of the building, which is 120,000 Ghana cedis. Do you see any other thing? Yes, the ratio of labor, material, and consultancy, that is 5 to 12 to 3, respectively, meaning 5 part of it is for labor, 12 part of it is for material, and 3 part of it is for consultancy. And another important information from this question is the fact that the cost of labor increased by 2y%, and the cost of material increased by 2.5y%. Then the consultancy fee remained unchanged. So these are all important information for us to help us solve our question. Let's not forget this part of the question which says that the new cost of labor is to fit the new cost of material. Now let's go to the first part of the question, which is the A. We have to find the value of y, and they've given us a ratio of the cost of the various components of the building against the estimated cost of the building. So it will be advisable for us to first find the total ratio, and the total ratio is 20, and this will help us find the respective estimated cost of labor, material, and consultancy. Then after this, we can use this to find the value of y. Alright, so now that we know the total ratio and we've been given 5 as the labor part of the estimated cost of the building, we'll use this 5 to find the estimated cost of labor. So let's go ahead and do that. So the estimated cost of labor is going to be the part of labor, which is 5 over the total ratio, 20 times the estimated cost of the building. So that will be 5 over 20 times 120,000. The 20 will divide 126 times, and 5 times 6 is 30. So that gives us 30,000 cedis. Then we go ahead and find the estimated cost of material cost, and material as part of the ratio is 12. So 12 over 20 times 120,000. 20 will divide into 126 times, and 12 times 6 is 72. So the estimated cost of material is 72,000. Then now we go ahead and find the cost involving consultancy, and the part of the ratio that is for consultancy is 3, so 3 over 20 times 120,000. Then again 20 will divide into 126 times 3 times 6 is 18, so that's going to give us 18,000. So now we know the cost of labor, the cost of material, and the cost of consultancy. And this is a very good opportunity for us to go back to the A part of the question to go and find out more information to help us find the value of Y. And this information is around the second part of the question, which says that at the start of the construction, the labor cost increased by 2y%. Cost of materials increased by 2.5y%. So we will come back to find the increase in the cost of labor. 2y times 300 will give us 600y. So 600y in terms of money is 600y Ghana cedis. And let's make that equation 1 because the y there is not a number, meaning that we'll come back to it to come and work out what the y is. So let's get back to the increase in material cost. So just like the increase in labor, you are going to take 2.5y% of the material cost, which is 72,000 Ghana cedis. Let's take that quickly. So again, we just did like we did for increase in labor. We take 2.5%, which is the same as 2.5 y over 100, then times the cost of labor. That will give us the increase, the actual increase, not in percentages, and that is 1,800y. And we made that equation 2 because that is inconclusive. We'll get back to it. It's like we are almost at a dead end now, since equation 1 is inconclusive in y, equation 2 is also inconclusive in y. So let's get back to our question and see whether we can get further information. So that information is if the new cost of labor is 2/5 of the new cost of material. That is a very important information for us. So the new cost of labor is going to be the actual cost of labor, or the estimated cost of labor, plus the increase in labor, right? That will give us the new cost of labor, the addition. And then also the new cost of material is going to give us the actual cost of material, which is 72,000 Ghana cedis, plus the increase in the cost of material. And now the question has given us the relationship between the two of them. We are going to write that relation and then we will solve for y. So we're just going to express this just as the question has given. So let me do that quickly and talk about it. Right. So we have it there just as I demonstrated earlier with the diagram. The new cost of labor is the actual cost of labor 30,000 plus the increase in labor, which is 600y. And the question said that is equal to 2/5. That means 2/5 of multiplication, so times the new cost of material, which is 72,000, the actual cost of material plus the increase in material 1,800y, and multiplying through by 5. You're going to have 5 multiplying the left hand side, then the 2 multiplying the right hand side. That's what we have here. Then 5 times 30,000 give 150,000 plus 5 times 600 will give us 3000y. Then 2 times 72,000 will give us 144,000. 2 times 1,800y will give us 3,600y. Then grouping like terms, we're going to have 150,000 minus 144,000. That will be equal to 3,600y minus 3,000y. Simplifying further, 150,000 minus 144,000 is going to give us 6,000, and 3,600 minus 3,000 is going to give us 600. Y. Dividing through by 600, we are going to have our y to be equal to 10. And that solves our question A. Find the value of y. Y equals 10. Then we go to the B part of the question, which is the new cost of building the house. So the new cost of building the house is going to be the new cost of labor plus the new cost of material plus the cost of consultancy, which has remained constant over the period. Now let's put the whole of that together quickly. The new cost of labor, as I said earlier, will be the estimated cost of labor, which is 30,000 plus the increase in labor, which is 600y. But now we know the value of y to be 10, so we substitute 10 right there. Then the new cost of material is going to be the estimated cost of material, which is 72,000 plus the increase in the cost of material, which is 1,800y. But then again, y is 10, so we substitute 10 wherever we see y. Then plus the cost of consultancy, which hasn't changed, so 18,000. Simplifying further, we're going to have 30,000 plus 600 plus 10 is 6,000 plus 72,000 plus 1,800 times 10 is 18,000. Then plus consultancy, which hasn't changed, 18,000. Putting all of them together will give us 144,000. And that is the new cost of the building. And that answers the B part of question 7. Now let's move on straight to question 8. Question 8 actually has two different questions. And the A part says, Kojo can do a piece of work in 5 hours. Edna can do the same piece of work in 4 hours. How long will it take the two of them to do the same work together if they worked at the same rate? And the B part says, a solid right circular prism of length 12 centimeters and a cross section which is an equilateral triangle of size 6 centimeters. Find correct to 4 significant figures the total surface area. Let's start right away with the A part, in which they told us the number of hours two people can do a piece of work, but they didn't give us the total piece of work. So let's let the total piece of work be X. According to the question, Kojo can do the piece of work in 5 hours and Edna can do the same piece of work in 4 hours. If Kojo can do the piece of work in 5 hours, then it means that in 1 hour, Kojo will be able to do 1/5 of the total piece of work, which will be 1/5x, and Edna we do 1/4 of the same piece of work, which is 1/4x. So now we'll put what each of them can do in 1 hour together to find what both of them can do together in 1 hour, and that will be 1/5x plus 1/4x. So that means both of them can do 1/5x plus 1/4x together in 1 hour. And to write this mathematically, we're going to have 1/5x plus 1/4x equals 1. Since we are adding, it will be easy for us to find the LCM, and the LCM for 4 and 5 is 20. So 5 will go into 24 times 1x is 4x plus 4 will go into this 5 times 1x is 5x. 4x plus 5x equal to 9x over 20 equal to 1. Multiplying both sides by 20, we're going to have 9x equal to 20 times 1. And dividing through both sides by 9x, we're going to have our x to be 20/9. And changing that to mixed fraction gives us 2 whole number 2/9 hours. It means that if both of them should be working at the same rate, they're going to use 2 whole number 2/9 hours, or its equivalent in decimal, to complete. Right. Let's go to the second part of the question, which is a solid right triangular prism of length 12 centimeters and a cross section, which is an equilateral triangle of size 6 centimeters. Find correct to 4 significant figures the total surface area. As usual, we get a key fact from this question, and the facts are that we have a right triangular prism. It's a very important information, and I'll explain that further as we work it on. Then another important information for us there is the fact that the length is 12 centimeters and a cross section, which is an equilateral triangle of size 6 centimeters. Right, so now that we have all this information, let me try sketching my triangular prism. Right, so this is my triangular prism. The cross section is an equilateral triangle, meaning that all sides are the same, and the question says 6, so here is 6, here is also 6, and here is also 6. Right, and they spoke about the length being 12 centimeters. So let me put the 12 centimeters here. Yeah, I promised earlier that I'll be explaining what the right triangular prism means. So that means that this side make a right angle, right angle, right angle, right angle. Yeah, we go ahead to explain the question further, or to solve the question further. This prism has 5 faces. It has 3 rectangular faces and 2 triangular faces. So if you want to find the total surface area, we just need to calculate the area of each of the faces and then putting them together to get the total surface area. So we start with the triangular faces, and to find the area of this triangle, we need to first calculate for the height. And as you can see from here, we don't have the height given, so let's create our own height and call it h. And this height will make an angle of 90 degrees with the base, because looking at the side here, they are equal, which means this triangle, though it's an equilateral triangle, it has the properties of an isosceles triangle. So since the two sides are equal, the height will make a right angle with the base. So now that we have the base, we can go now and get the area of a triangle. Alright, so let's get the area of the triangle here, which is area equals 1/2 times base times height. Alright, so we have 1/2 times the base of our triangle is 6 centimeters times height, which we don't know yet, but then we can quickly work out for that. So this is a right triangle, and if you have a right triangle for which you know 2 of the sides, Then to find the third side, I hope you know the simplest way to find that is by using the Pythagorean theorem, which says that for any right triangle, the sum of squares of the two other sides should be equal to the square of the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, and the side opposite the right angle. Right. So let's work out that quickly here to get a value for h. From what I've said, meaning that h squared plus 3 squared should be equal to 6 squared. And that will give us h squared plus 3 squared is 9, should be equal to 36. Regrouping, you get h squared to be equal to 36 minus 9. Now h squared will be equal to 27. Taking the square root of both sides, h will be equal to 3 root 3 when we reduce this, or its equivalent in decimals. But I would like to use it in the radical form because with this I'm not doing any approximation, I'm using a raw figure. So now coming back to the area of our triangle, we are going to get 1/2 times 6 times 3 root 3, and this one will go here 3 times. So 3 times 3 will give us 9 root 3 square centimeters as the area of only this side of the prism. Then I would like to find the area of the rectangular side, so that after that I put all of them together, and that means we are going to use the area of a rectangle. So I hope we know that the area of a rectangle is length times breadth. The length of our rectangle is 12 times the breadth is 6, and when we multiply the two of them, that is going to give us 72 square centimeters. Like I said, this figure has 5 sides, 2 triangular sides and 3 rectangular sides. So to find the total surface area, we are just going to put all 5 together. So let's work out that. Alright, so I just decided to write everything before I talk. Like I said before writing, this is the area of the triangular side, and there are 2, so 2 times that area, then plus the rectangular side or rectangular face, which has an area of 72 cm squared. So that one, there are also 3, so 3 times that give us 216, and this one give us 18 root 3. And when you add the two of them in decimal, you are going to get 247.1769. But the question asks us to leave our answer to 4 significant figures. So that is how we got the 247.2 centimeters squared at the total surface area of our prism. Alright, so let's move on to the next question, question 9. Okay, so question 9 is a tree graph with the essay that copy and complete the table of values for y equals cos x minus 3 sine x, where 0 degrees is less or equal to x less or equal to 180 degrees, and we have the table there that we have to complete. The B parts are using a scale of 2 centimeters to 20 units on the x-axis and 4 centimeters to 1 unit on the y-axis. Draw the graph of y equals cos x minus 3 sine x, the same graph. Then C, using the graph, find the true set of 2 plus cos x as 3 sine x. Then I, range of values of x for which y increases as x increases. Then I, the minimum point of the curve. So let's start with the very first part for us to copy and complete the table. For this particular one, the table has already been completed on the question paper, but then you don't need to complete the table manually by substituting this, but then your calculator can do that. Unfortunately, I already have a video on how to use the calculator to complete tables like this, and I'm sharing the link at the top. It will also be in the description. So if you have challenge with how to use the calculator to complete a table like this, I encourage you to watch that video and then you'll be fine. So using the calculator in less than 2 minutes, you get all these numbers with the table completed. So you should get 1.0, then this one you should get negative 0.86, which when you approximate you should get negative 0.1. so the person didn't bring the negative sign, so negative 0.1. then when you approximate this, you should get negative 1.2. then here you should get negative 2.1, then negative 2.8 for 80. So here is negative 2.8. then 100 is negative 3.1. then 120 is negative 3.1 again. then 140 is negative 2.6. then 160 is negative 2.0, which is already given by the question, and then this is negative 1. Again, you should just use the calculator to verify your answers. I'm sure the student who used this didn't know how to use the calculator to solve this, that's why I got some of them wrong. All right, then we go to the B part. The B part is asking us to draw the graph of this table using the scale of 2 centimeters to 20 units on the x-axis and 4 centimeters to 1 unit on the y-axis. I have a graph sheet here that I would like to use. Right, so I have my graph book here. Let me draw my axis quickly. All right, so I managed to get a graph book here, which I will manage through the construction. So we have been asked to use a scale of 2 centimeters to 20 units on the x-axis and 4 centimeters to 1 unit on the y-axis. Right, so this is my x-axis, and then this is my y-axis, which I've extended into the question, but let's just manage it that way. Right, so since my graph book is not designed like the way it is in the exams, I've decided to use 5 boxes for 2 centimeters. But when you check the actual graph book, you get 10 of the smaller boxes for 2 centimeters. So you use the 10 boxes for 2 centimeters. That is 10 smaller boxes, but it's one bigger box. But here you can see that I don't have bigger and smaller boxes. So you mark the bigger boxes just like we did in question 6 together. So if I use 5 for 2 centimeters, I have to use 10 for 4 centimeters on the y-axis. So that's what I have: 20, 20, 20, 20 difference on the x-axis, and then 1, 1, 1 difference on the y-axis. So let's go ahead and plot our point to draw our graph. For 0 we have 1, so let me go plot 0 and 1 here. That's my 0 and 1. Then I have 20 and negative 0.1. so this 20 on the x-axis. So if 10 of my smaller boxes is 1, then to get a value of 1 box, it means I'll divide 1 by 10, and that gives me 0.1. So it means that each of my smaller boxes is 0.1. So 20 negative 0.1 will be right here. Then 40 is negative 1.2. so this negative 1, and this is negative 1.1, negative 1.2. so it will be here 40 negative 1.2. Then I have 60 and negative 2.1. Negative 2.1 is here, and then 60 is right here. Then I have 80 and negative 2.8. so this is 80. Sorry, my graph book ended, but I think 2.8 will be somewhere here. Then we have 100 and then 3.1. so 3 is somewhere here. Let me have my 3.1 somewhere here. Then I have 120 and 3.1 again somewhere here. Then I have 140 is 92.7. so right here. Then I have 160 and negative 2.0. so 160 right here, negative 2.0. Then I have negative 1.0 for 180. So this is negative 1.0, and this is 180 right here. So I'm going to connect them to get my graph. Alright, so I managed to connect my point to get this as my graph, and this answers the B part of the question. We take the C part, which is interpretation of the graph. So the first part, which is the I, says that using the graph, find the true set of 2 plus cos x equal to 3 sin x. The first thing we need to do is to work on this for it to look like y, so that we can compare with the graph, which is the y. Remember that this is our graph y, so we need to solve it to get it y so that we can compare it with the graph. C I will be 2 plus cos x equals 3 sine x. So like I said earlier, we are going to work this out to look like the original function or equation for the graph so that we can compare the two of them. So rearranging, we should have cos x minus 3 sine x equals -2, because this look exactly like our y. So I move this to the left and move this to the right. So comparing this with our original function, this is y. So instead of writing this, I write y equals -2. So that means now I'm going to draw a line through y equal -2 and see where it intersects the graph and trace it to the x-axis. Let's go and do that quickly. Ooh, I didn't negate my numbers. Let me just do that quickly. This is -1, -2, -3. Let me draw a line through y equal -2 and let's see what we have. Right, so here I have my graph and then I trace this one. Let me just write a name. This is y equals -2, which we got from our calculation here. So now we trace it to the x-axis and then we find the answer. It's not exactly on the 60. So if you ask me, I would say 58, because 5 of them equal to 20, so one of them is 4. So the difference between here and here is, I'll say 59. Okay, let me just say 59. But I just want to emphasize that it's not exactly on the 60. So it's normally plus or minus 2. So 59 degrees is not really bad from here. And then here too, it's not exactly on 160. So let me just say 159. Also plus or minus 2. I think mine should be exactly safe into it. So for that, I would say that the true set of this equation here is 59 degrees and then 159 degrees. Like I said, plus or minus 2 extra unit because it's a freehand sketch to be fine. So let me go and write that. Yeah, so again, the plus or minus 2 is just to allow space for a minor error, since it's a freehand work, not with a ruler. So plus 2 means when you have 60 or 61 is correct, or 58, 57 is correct. This one to 160, 161 is correct, 158, 157 is also correct. So let's go to I, which is the range of values of x for which y increases as x increases. The graph is to the y. So if you are to find the range of values of x for which y increases as x increases, from here, this is the beginning of the graph according to the table. Y is decreasing from here because the graph keeps going down, going down, going down. Anywhere you trace to the y, as you see that you are getting a lower number, lower number, lower number, until you get to this part of the graph, the vertex of the graph, where the graph becomes static or it stops moving. Then if you want to move forward, it will now keep increasing because it starts climbing again. But the difference is that from here, as you come down, y is decreasing, though x is increasing, because as you go this way, any point on the graph you trace to the x-axis, the number will keep increasing, but the y will keep decreasing. But as we get here, you see that anywhere you trace, the x is still increasing and the y is also still increasing because the graph is climbing up. So with a ruler, we will locate that from this point here, the graph will be static, but after you move from here, x will be increasing because you still continuing to the right, and y will also be increasing because you are going up. So we'll pick a ruler and trace it to the x-axis. Right, so tracing through here, we are going to get, my graph got finished here, but I just managed to do estimation here. So estimating the turning point of my graph, or the vertex of my graph, as this part, I trace it to the x-axis, and here we have this. If 5 smaller boxes give us 20, then each of them will be 4. So 1 2 3, 4 times 3 will be 12, plus 100 will be 112. So it means that anywhere along the x-axis from 112 towards the right, the x value of the graph will be increasing, while the y value also will be increasing. So from here will be increasing. So we say that the answer to this question, the range of values of x for which y increases as s increases, is x is such that 112 degrees plus or minus 2 less than x. Then let's take the last one, the minimum point of the curve. The minimum point of the curve occurs at the vertex of the graph here. So we just have to trace here. We have the x value already. Let's manage to trace it to the y axis. And tracing with my ruler, I want to get the coordinates of this point and then write them here. As for the x value, we know it already as 112 approximately. So the x coordinate is going to be 1 1 2. Then the y here, looking at my marking here, maybe I would say negative 3.2 approximately. So that makes the answer for the third question, which is we should find a minimum point. So the minimum point of the curve is 1 1 2 comma negative 3.2 on the y-axis. Yeah, let's take the next question, which will be question 10. So question 10 has a table that has a number of values in it, and the instruction says that the table shows the ages in years of 42 children at a birthday party. A, find the value of x. B, calculate correct to the nearest whole number the mean age. And then C, find the probability of selecting at random a child whose age is not less than 9 years. Alright, let's go straight into the solution. So we have been asked to find the value of x. We get back to the question again to see if we can have a very important information, and that important information is right here. So the table shows the ages of 42 children at a birthday party. That means that when we add all this number of children, it should be equal to 42. So that is what we are going to do. Then we solve for x. So let's go straight to that. Right, so like I said, I just added all of this and equated it to 2. And when we group the like terms, we have 12x minus 6 equals 42. Then 12x, simplifying further, 12x will be equal to 48. Dividing 2 by 12 gives us 4. So the value of x is 4. And that is the answer to the A. Then let's go to the B side. The B side, so we should calculate correct to the nearest whole number the mean age. And if you be watching my video, you remember that I always say that anytime we are working something that has a formula, it is easier for us to quote the formula before we start to work. So the mean from a frequency table, because that is a frequency table, is what, yeah, I'm sure you are saying, is sigma fx over sigma f. So two things we can do here. You can construct another table by substituting the x, where you have here as your x, the ages as your x, and then the number of children as your f. Then you create a third column, which is fx. Then you sum up the fx, and then you sum up the f by replacing the value of x. But then in this solution, I'm not going to construct a table. I'm going to multiply the numbers with their respective frequencies. Let me just substitute the 4 into it. If I substitute the 4 into it, I'm going to have here to be 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, minus 1 15. So I have 15 here. Then here will be 4 minus 2 is 2, and then 4 minus 3 is 1. So now I'm going to multiply each of these to get my fx, but because sigma is summation, I will just be multiplying and be adding them straightforward. So I'm going to write my mean equals summation of f times x. So I'm going to be multiplying. So the first one, I have 7 times 8 plus 8 times 12 plus 9 times 15 plus 10 times 4 plus 11 times 2, then plus 12 times 1. All right, all over 42, because we were told that the total is 42. So even if you add all these frequencies, you're going to get 42, and that gives us 7 times 8 is 56 plus 96 plus this is 135 plus this is 40 plus 22, then plus 12, all over 42. If we add the numerator well, we should have 361 over 42, and that will give us 8.595. And since the question asks us to calculate to the nearest whole number, this will give us 9 years. So the mean age of the children is 9. Right, let's get to the C part of the question, which is asking us to find the probability of selecting at random a child whose age is not less than 9 years. This is a very important information. Not less than 9 years. What does that mean? Not less than 9 years means 9 years or more. So let's get back to our table. This is 9 years here. So it means that 7 and 8 are less than 9 years. So it means that we are adding the ages of 9, 10, 11, and 12 because they are not less than 9 years. So we are going to add these frequencies over the total. That's probability, the event over the sample space. So find the probability of selecting at random a child whose age is not less than 9 years. So we are going to have 15 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. Let's get that quickly. Right. So like I said, when we added 15 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 gives us 22. So the probability of selecting a child whose age is not less than 9 years is 11 over 21. And that is question 10. Wow. Yeah, almost 2. Let's get on to question 11. Question 11 is actually A and B. So the A part says that given that cos 2x plus 15 equals sine x minus 30, y 0 degrees is less or equal to x less or equal to 90 degrees, find the value of x. There are two ways we can solve this question actually, and I'm going to try using both ways to explain. I've solved a number of questions that look like this in other videos, but then I'll explain here again that if the cos of an angle equal to the sine of another angle, it means that the two angles are complementary, or that means when you add the two of them you should get 90 degrees. So let's just do that quickly. Right, so I just went through solving. Like I said, when you add the two angles you should get 90 degrees. So I just added the two angles, 2x plus 15 and then x minus 30 equals to 90, and then I simplify to get 35. Then the second thing we can do It's just the same thing that we are doing in another way. So that one, we'll use the relationship between sine and cos. If the cos of an angle equals the sine of another angle, then the cos of the first angle will be the same as the cos of 90 minus the second angle, or the other way around. So I can decide to use the cos or the sine. So in this case, I'm going to use the cos, since that is what is at the left hand side. But if you work that with the sine, you get the same thing. So let's work that one out quickly. Two x plus 15 will be equal to cos 90 minus x plus 30. Remember, we are using -1 to open these parentheses, and cos 2x plus 15 will be equal to cos 120 minus x. And taking cos inverse of both sides, we are going to have 2x plus 15 to be equal to 120 minus x. Grouping like that, you're going to have 3x to be equal to 105. Dividing through both sides by 3, x will be equal to 35, which is the same as this one. So it depends on whichever way works for you, and you are good to go. So that is just the first part of question 11. Now let's get the second part, which has a diagram which has the instruction under. In the diagram, ABCF is a straight line, this one, and BD is parallel to CE, and angle ABD equals 2x plus 34 degrees. If angle BCD equals 1/3 of angle BDC and angle FCE equals 48 degrees, find I, the value of x. So let's go solve that first. And this is a very important information for us, which says that the line segment BD is parallel to the line segment CE. So if the line segment BD is parallel to CE, then it means that this angle here, FCE, and then CBD are corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are equal. So that would mean that angle FCE is equal to angle CBD, and that will give us 48 degrees. So let me go write that quickly. All right, let's get back to the question. So now that we have that, then it means that this angle here, which is ABD plus CBD, should give us 180 degrees, since they are angles on a straight line. So let's go put that quickly. All right, so I just represented this, and then I worked to simplify. We had 2x plus 82 equals 180. Then 180 minus 82 gives us 90. Dividing through by 2 gives us 49. Therefore, the value of x is 49. Let's get back to the question. And the second part is for us to find the value of angle BDC. What is BDC? BDC, right? So this is it. Maybe let's just call it y for now. And this is the time for us to use this information given us in the question, that angle BCD is 1/3 of angle BDC. This is BDC, and then BCD. So if this is y, then mean that here will be 1/3 of y, and we know here to be 48. So that means that 48 plus y plus 1/3 of y should give us 180 degrees, which is the sum of angles in a triangle. So that is what we are going to represent. Then we simplify to get the value of y. Right, so like I said, we represented what I just said here, and then we multiply it through by 3. 48 times 3 give us 144. Y times 3 give us 3y. 1/3 y times 3 will give us y. Then 180 times 3 will give us 540. So grouping like terms, you are going to get 4y equals 396. Then 396 divided by 4 gives us 99 degrees. Therefore, angle BDC equals 99 degrees. And that is question 11. Let's get to question 12. Question 12 says that 15 persons were shortlisted for the job interview. On the day of the interview, each applicant was assigned a number from 1 to 15. An applicant was called at random from the list of numbers. Find the probability that the applicant called has the number which is prime, that is I, then I multiple of 3, I divisible by 5. Right, so this is pretty simple. Let's work it out. Let me call the number given to the people as the U, and the numbers are 1 to 15. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 up to 15. Yeah, the number of members in this set is 15. Then the first part of the question, which is I, so we should find the probability of a number called being a prime number. So let me call that set P and list the prime numbers in this. So we have 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and then 13. And the total number of members in this set will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 members. And the probability of P, the number being a prime number, is going to be number of members that are prime over the total number, which is 15, and that is going to give us 2 over 5. That is our answer, probability of selecting a number that is prime. So let's get to the second part of the question, which is asking us to find the probability of selecting a number that is a multiple of 3. So let's get the multiples of 3 first. Let me call it M. The members of M will be 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. And that will have a total number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5. And the probability of selecting a number that is a multiple of 3, which I'm calling M, is going to be total number of values that are multiples of 3 over the total, which is 15, and that is going to give us 1/3. This is a probability. Then let's get to the last part of this question, which is to find the numbers that are divisible by 5. Let me call that D, and that is going to be 5, 10, and 15. Right, and the total number of values is 3. So the probability is going to be 3 over 15, which gives us 1/5. So that is the probability. Then let's quickly get to the B part of the question. And the B part of the question is PQRS is a quadrilateral with P with coordinate 4, 4, S 8, 8, and R 12, 8. If vector PQ equals 4 vector XR, find the coordinate of Q. So let me start by that last part of the information, which is vector PQ equals 4 vector XR. By the basic knowledge from vectors, PQ will be OQ minus OP, and that should be equal to 4 times OR minus OS, all vectors. Right, now let's substitute the coordinates into it. So right from here, We are looking for the coordinate of Q, so we don't know Q. We'll keep that and make it a subject. We are going to have vector OQ minus vector OP, which has the coordinate 4, 4. Remember, now it's not a point, it's a vector, so let's write in the column form. That will give us 4. R is 12, 8 minus 8, 8, which are the coordinate of X. But remember, the 4 is multiplying both of them, so we need to put it in parentheses. Then working further, we are going to have vector OQ minus 4, 4 will be equal to 4 multiplying 12 minus 8 is 4. 8 minus 8 is 0. Simplifying and rearranging, we are going to have vector OQ to be equal to 16, 0, which is what we got from here, plus 4, 4 when we rearrange. Remember, it's not a fraction, so don't bring over, it's a vector. Then working it further, we are going to have 24. So that means the coordinate of the point Q will be 20,4, and that is our answer. Let's get to the 13th question, which is the last question for this video. Question 13 says that, in fact, the A side says that the hour hand of a 24-hour clock moves from 1:15 p.m., that is 13:15, to 17:45 p.m. It should actually be GMT or something, but we have PM there, so let me go by that. That is 1:15 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. If the length of the hour hand is 3.5 centimeters, find correct to 3 significant figures the area swept by the hour hand. Take pi equal 22/7. The first thing we can do would be for us to find the total duration of the movement of the hand of the clock, and that would be 17:45 minus 13:15, and that is going to give us 4 hours 30 minutes. We must find out what these 4 hours 30 minutes mean in terms of angles. And how do we get that? We are talking about the hour hand of the clock, and the analog clock has 12 divisions, so the total of the 12 divisions will be equal to 360 degrees. So if you want to know what 1 hour is, we need to divide 360. So 1 hour on the clock in degrees is going to be 360 divided by 12, which will give us 30 degrees. So 4 hours, which will be angle gained by the clock, will be equal to 4 times 30 degrees, then plus 30 minutes, which is half an hour, so that will be 15 degrees, and that is going to give us 120 plus 15, and that will be 135 degrees, and that is just the angle gained by the clock. So now let's go ahead and find out the area swept by the clock. So between these two times, a sector will be formed, so we are just going to use the area of a sector to find the area of the sweep, or area swept by the hand of the clock. So let's do that quickly. We know that the area of a sector is the angle the sector subtends at the center of the circle over 360 times the area of a circle, which is pi r squared. So substituting the numbers, our theta is 135 degrees over 360 times pi is 22/7 times the question gave us the radius of the circle, which becomes the hand of the clock as 3.5. So that will be 3.5 times 3.5 or 3.5 squared, whichever you take. And if you work this out with your calculator, you should get 14.4375. And the question asks us to leave this to 3 significant figures. So that will give us 14.4 square centimeters, which is 3 significant figures. And that is answer for the first part. Let's take the B part of the question, which says that the coordinates of 2 points M and N in a plane are -4, 3 and x6 respectively. If the magnitude of Mn is 3√10 units, find the value of x. Let's do that quickly and bring today's lesson to an end. Let's try listing our M. So M has coordinates -4, 3, and then N has coordinates x and 6. Using the distance formula, which will say that the length Mn, and because you are going to use the distance formula, let's call this x1, y1, and then x2, y2. So now stating the distance formula, which says the length Mn will be x2 minus x1 all squared plus y2 minus y1 all squared, the square root of that. And the question says that this one, the magnitude or the length Mn equals 3√10. So I would like to state that so that I don't forget. This is it in the question. If this equals this, find the value of x. So let's go ahead and work it now. So substituting the values, we're going to have the square root of x2 is x minus x1 is -4. Then all squared plus y2 is 6 minus y1 is 3 all squared, v equal to 3√10. Right, working further, we are going to have the square root of x plus 4 all squared plus 6 minus 3 is 3. So 3 squared equals 3√10. Right. Simplifying further, I would like to square both sides to get rid of the square root. So squaring both sides, this square will just cancel the square root. I'm going to have x plus 4 all squared plus 9 being equal to this one squared with 3 squared is 9, then times the square will cancel the root, so 10. Now let me do it this way. Right. Simplifying further, you are going using binomial expansion. You are going to get x squared plus 8x plus 16 plus 9 to give us 90. We continue to simplify to get x squared plus 8x plus 25 equals 90. Then regrouping, we're going to have x squared plus 8x, 25 minus 90 will give us -65 equals 0. By factoring this, we are looking for 2 factors of -65. That will give us 8 here, and that is negative 5 and 13. So this will give us x squared minus 5x plus 13x minus 65 equals 0. Alright, so this one, just make it 4 terms so that we can group them in pairs. Remember, negative 5x plus 13x will give us our positive 8x back, so we have not changed the question. So factorizing further, we're going to have x out, x minus 5 plus 13 out, x minus 5 equals 0. Then factoring, going to get x plus 13 multiplying x minus 5 equals 0. Then equating each of them to 0, x plus 13 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0. So x will be equal to negative 13 or x will be equal to 5. Therefore, the values of x are negative 13 or 5, and that is the answer to the question. Wow, this has been a very long one, but I hope going through these 13 questions has been of help to you. If yes, then why not consider subscribing to this channel for more videos like this. Till we meet again in my study room, it's a bye for now. Bye bye.